You're listening to the Every Day is a New Day show. Inspirational conversations with movers and shakers about moving forward and choosing to embrace a positive outlook. Now, here's your host, Kim O'Neill.
Welcome. My name's Kim O'Neill, and I'm a twice certified transformational coach, Reiki master, best-selling author, podcast host, former crime analyst, and big believer in learning from everything so you can confidently move forward in life. You can join us for the live shows most Wednesdays on Facebook at 6 p.m. Pacific time. And now, here's today's newest awesome guest. Today I'm going to be speaking with Daniel Olexa. He's my final amazing mover and shaker of 2019. We're going to be talking about moving forward, embracing that positive outlook. And before we get into that, I am also, in addition to an interview confidence coach, in addition to hosting the show, I'm also an interview confidence coach, as well as a transformational coach for people who are really in that process of bridging the gap between their head and their heart. And if that sounds like you or something you may currently be going through, then I invite you to go to KimO'NeillCoaching.com, and I look forward to connecting with you from there. We're going to get into today's conversation. I'm excited to share with you who Daniel is as you join us here. And I see we've already got some people with us, so feel free to say hello. Let us know what questions are coming up for you, because Daniel is super inspirational. We're going to be talking about not only his story, but also how you can create the story that you want to experience for 2020, for beyond, and apply that to your life, at any time. So first, let me just go ahead and welcome you to the show, Daniel. Welcome.
Oh, thank you. It's great to be here, Kim.
Yeah, I'm glad to have you here. So the way I like to do this, and I know I already shared this with you, but for all of our viewers today, I'm going to go ahead and just give you a little bit of Daniel's background by reading his bio to you, and then we're going to get deeper into the conversation and flow with it. So for all those just getting to meet Daniel for the very first time, Daniel Olexa has been recognized as one of Southern California's best and favorite hypnotherapists and life coaches by the readers of The Daily Breeze. He is the #1 best-selling author of Practical Manifesting and A Pessimist's Guide to Manifesting, as well as his #1 new release, My 2-Minute Journal. He is also the chapter president of the Holistic Chamber of Commerce in Long Beach, California, as well as the lead facilitator and trainer with the Life Coach Institute of Orange County, where he shares his skills and experience with the next generation of life coaches. Daniel has been recognized by Feedspot.com, Lost Empire Herbs, and Expertido as having one of the top 100 hypnotherapy blogs in the world. And Daniel believes fully in anyone's ability to change their story so that they may achieve success. His mantra is, "We are nothing more than the stories we tell about who we are. We are literally the embodiment of that story. Change your story, change what you believe about who you are and what you deserve, and you will create a new life experience." And so I'm sure you can see, with that said, why I'm super excited to have Daniel here, and just especially the timing of it all. So Daniel, I want to first actually start with the story piece. I mean, I know I saw you write some really awesome posts lately, and I was like, oh my gosh, I have to talk to this guy and have you be here and share with everyone. What comes up for you first when you think about that, about how we can create our own stories?
The first thing that comes up for me is how mired we get in the old ones. That it must be the only thing that's true because it's all I've experienced in my life, and that can't possibly be any other way. And it's all those limitations are ego driven. That and I say this to a lot of people, and I say it in presentations. Anything that is telling you that you are less than in any way, shape, or form is lying to you. That once you tap into your, what I'll call your soul's calling, your passion, your purpose for life, you are truly an unlimited being. That doesn't mean things happen magically like that, but you open up to possibility, and there is really nothing that can stop you except yourself.
Was there ever a time when this was something that you didn't understand or didn't know about yet?
That's why it took me 50 years to figure it out. Yeah, I think back to, I've always had a spiritual pull, even going back to weird things happening in the house that I grew up in when I was 5 years old. But I would open up to it and something would happen because I didn't know how to shield my energy to protect myself, and I would back away. and I'd back away for years until I started to slowly open that door again. And I remember reading The Secret when it came out 15, 18 years ago, thinking, oh, this is great and all. And then I wished for it and it didn't happen. Like, oh, this is a bunch of crap. So I'm not going to watch that. Not going to read that again. But I would see things that would give me other perspective. Like things would just strangely work out sometimes, or there'd be days that I was so caught up in not wanting to be somewhere that I would will myself sick just to get the day off. And I'd think, like, if I could do that, what could I do if I took it the other way?
Right.
But it was always limitation that got in the way. So there would be these snippets of you need to pay attention, followed by it's not that easy. You got to figure this out for yourself and move on your path. So for years, it was just kind of in my sphere. And it was about 6 years ago that I came across a book by a gentleman named Isaiah Hankel. And that book literally changed my life. That was the one that did it. It's called Black Hole Focus. And it shifted me into a new way of looking at things.
Black Hole Focus. Okay, I've never heard of that. I'm going to have to check that one out.
Yeah, wonderful, wonderful person too. Isaiah's amazing.
Okay. So tell us more about this journey. It sounds like first there was the awareness piece.
Yeah, I was in a marriage that wasn't working out anymore. Had been tailing that way for a while. I was working at a miserable soul-sucking job, and it was all coming into this perfect storm at the same time. As I go through the separation with the relationship and coming to terms with everything that's boiling up at this job, I snapped one day. I just threw my hands up and walked out. That was about the time that I discovered Isaiah's book. And what it put into perspective for me, I was reading Blue Zones at the same time. If you're familiar with Blue Zones, that there are 4 or 5 areas in the world where people live to be over 100 and incredibly healthy.
Okay.
At the same rate, healthy as Americans are at like 40 and 45, these people are healthy at 100.
Wow.
So the researchers would go in and say, is it something in the water or is it lifestyle? And there are some overarching principles, but each culture has its own thing. And between Blue Zones and Black Hole Focus, the same concept was laid in front of me in a space of about 5 days. And it's that in Okinawa, the Okinawans do not have a word for retirement in their language, but they do have a word that roughly translates to the thing that gets you out of bed in the morning. And it's about living with purpose. And I think that word, I'll probably butcher the pronunciation, but it's ikigai, Ikigai.
Oh, okay.
So I started asking myself, why am I going to this job that I now hate? I don't respect them anymore. They evidently don't respect me. And I would wake up, the first answer is obviously always because I need a paycheck to pay the mortgage. And that didn't sit. It's like, I could do that anywhere. So about 2-3 weeks went by every morning asking myself why. And a client called one day and said, we need you to come over here and help us figure this project out. And as I hung up the phone, the light bulb was over my head saying, I love problem solving. And the more we have to negotiate through it, the more I enjoy it. And I could feel that in my core. I mean, right here, it just set. Now I know. Now, what do I do with it? Where do I carry it forward? And what happened next was, even if I wasn't burned out in that industry, as I was getting ready to move from Kansas City to Florida, where we were moving to in Florida, that industry didn't exist in that way. So kind of toying around with the idea of, now that I know what I'm doing or what is calling me, where do I take it? And, I was working in a dying industry. What industry is not going to go away? Healthcare. I'm not going back to school to get a doctorate. What do I do? And I started thinking about the idea of hypnotherapy. And as we're on the road, make the first stop on the travel from Kansas City to Florida and look up hypnotherapy training in Florida that night. There's one school at the time teaching a state certified program, and they had a satellite campus in our town, which was Naples. Everything else was Orlando, Tampa, St. Pete, big cities. And here's little Naples with 25, 30,000 people. And there's a campus. Just shut up and take my money. I know what I'm supposed to be doing now.
Okay. Oh my gosh. Okay. So I just want to first acknowledge the reason why I keep looking down is I want to make sure people are hearing this, and I realize this needs to be shared on Facebook again. So,
okay.
So we're going to make sure that we get this out right now, and there we go. Perfect. So how fitting that here you are in this space of finally discovering what that belief was underneath why things were playing out, right? Mm-hmm. And you discover that hypnotherapy is something you like to do. And oh my goodness, there just happens to be a school, how fitting, right there near where you live. So what else has there been more than just uncovering limiting beliefs that hypnotherapy has been able to show you or open you up to?
Yeah, I think on some level, the biggest one is limiting beliefs, but understanding where they came from and where they were learned. There was a moment as I was going through school, I tell this story to the students in my classes. You know how when you're working somewhere and you're getting paid every 2 weeks, there's those 2 months out of the year where it's like bonus paycheck. This is great. Yeah. And I grew up in a family where my parents grew up during the Depression. They learned lack to no end. And we heard it a lot. We would hear it in their language growing up. And then how we carried that forward for ourselves. And I get this extra paycheck. It's great. And just happened to be talking to one of my siblings about something and just casually mention it because a day later, the bill from the state of Florida for my car renewal shows up. Like, there we go. The punishment.
Yeah.
And the same litany came out that was going through my head of, you can never get ahead. Every time somebody's there, every time you get $1, somebody's there to take it away and blah, blah, blah. And as this person said it back to me verbatim with the same emphasis, I'm now far enough down in the hypnotherapy training to recognize that, wait, you can't be saying the same things going through my head in the same order unless we learned them from the same place. And that means they're not mine. So how we carry the past few months, I've really dug in deep on what some people would call, what's the word? It's emotional trauma that's carried down, inherited family trauma. And I just call it the family curse. That thing that has been there for decades, for generations, that just gets passed down without anybody thinking about it. And it's time to stop. It's not mine. It's not my clients to carry anymore. In those moments when we're in session doing that deep work and they suddenly realize that this baggage has somebody else's name on it and they can put it down and leave it behind or burn it, bury it, whatever they want to do, is a powerful moment.
I know there are a lot of different things people can do to help release that and clear that out. Will you talk about the value of using hypnotherapy to help clear that out?
Yeah, the biggest thing with hypnotherapy is for those who don't know, hypnotherapy is using the tool of hypnosis to have a client relax down where we can have a dialogue, a discussion directly with their subconscious minds. The churn of the front brain, the conscious mind is quieted. A lot of the limiting, the conscious mind out of the way so that we can get right to those parts, because the subconscious is where we hold our beliefs about ourselves. It's the seat of our emotions. And it's where those things get impressed that help create the story of who we are. So the person who has this struggle with money, that means I always have to have a struggle with money until we go in and start talking to that part of them. A lot of my work is done with what's called parts therapy. Okay. And the idea behind parts is that we all have subordinate parts to our personality, not divergent, but subordinate. They learned a job somewhere, either in a moment of shock or through repetition of hearing the same thing over and over, took it to be true, and they stopped growing in that moment. And something that we learned at 5 that protected us then, kept us as part of the family unit, or helped us just to survive that moment, doesn't work when we're 25, doesn't work when we're 30, 40, 50, yet it's playing the same loop over and over, keeping us stuck. And when there's a certain technique I use in those moments where I help the client come to awareness as to whether it is truly part of them, and if it is, then we work to reframe that part's job, so it's empowering them forward toward their goals, versus if it's not them, And if it's not them, then we can get rid of it. And those are magical moments.
Oh, I believe it. So in fact, I remember the very first time I asked myself about something that I had been experiencing, and I had learned to ask, is this mine? And it wasn't until I literally said those words out loud to myself, not just in my head, that I instantly got the answer. No, it's not. Mm-hmm. Right. And then I said, who does this belong to? And I actually got the name of who it actually came from.
Wonderful.
It was amazing and powerful. And so I want to, get your thoughts on it. Does it tend to be, do you find that it tends to be as simple as that for the clients you work with, or go much deeper? Because I know sometimes I've asked myself and then I'm not quite sure too. So
yeah, what I'll do with the client is I will ask them before we go into a parts therapy session. One of the things I always ask is their religious or spiritual beliefs, because sometimes when those parts that are not part come up, they can be a difficult to deal with. Okay. And I don't want to go too far down a weird conversation here, but they can be stubborn. And we need something bigger to help bring the clarity and the extra energy to help them clear. Because there are times when they can put on a very dark bullying front that can have the client thinking, I can't get rid of it. So I'll have the client connect to either their higher self, or if they're inclined toward angel guides, toward God, Jesus, whatever their spiritual belief is in something higher, stronger, then that thing doesn't have a chance.
I love that you brought that up. And so for anybody watching this, you're essentially saying you don't have to have a certain religious belief or a certain spiritual belief. You can work with anybody regardless of what their foundational.
At the end of the day, it's not me.
Yeah,
I'm just there to facilitate, and I have to honor the client's belief system because they're the one doing the work. So I just have to dance in the moment and be able to facilitate what's going on.
What would you say to someone who is hesitant or maybe even scared to do hypnotherapy?
That all hypnosis is self-hypnosis. So, and what I mean by that is someone coming into a provider, I won't even say me, anyone coming into a provider of hypnotherapy has to be comfortable with that person. Mm-hmm. And feel that, one, they understand the problem where the client is stuck. They have the tools to get them where they want to go, and they understand where they want to go, and they just have the vibe. They feel comfortable with them. When that happens, the client will allow themselves to relax to that place where they are fully in control. This is not stage chicken dancing stuff.
Yeah.
There's a science behind that as well, that person is also in control. They're just choosing to dance like a chicken. I am not in control. No hypnotherapist is in control. The client is always in control. And we go to that place where they facilitate through. I am just guiding and asking questions. So if something comes up that maybe there's something that is really disturbing, and I don't want to go too dark, but let's say they had a moment of really dark trauma in their past that has been coming up and getting in the way, even if they may not remember what it is. It's been blocked out. Their subconscious will not allow them to remember that until they are ready to process it. So if the door's been shut on that thing, until they are ready, that door is not, there's nothing I can do to open it except to help them to feel comfortable. And even then, if their subconscious says you're not ready for this, it's not going to open up. We can work around it without ever knowing what that moment is.
Is there anything anyone can do to become more ready?
In the work that I do with the clients, particularly the early sessions where I tend to lean towards suggestion therapy, which is the delivery of affirmations while they're in that relaxed state, and I do give them a recording to listen to so they get the repetition of that the new story essentially. Okay. Most of the time, what will happen is once they build up confidence, because they've been living in a low confidence, low self-esteem place where their power has really been, essentially their power's, I always said taken from them, they have given away their power. when they start to build back up and get back to that core confidence and feel stronger, then more than likely those doors open later. Some people are ready to do it very first session. Others, it might be 4 or 5 down the road.
Okay. And just for anybody who's wondering, what's the difference between, the type of hypnosis we might see on TV where someone's, acting like a chicken because someone told them now you're a chicken versus what you do? What's the difference there?
So the big is on the very surface level, entertainment versus therapy. Okay. That's it. So on the deeper level, that friend who who would prefer to blend into the wallpaper when they go out because they don't want to be seen. They tell the story of I'm shy, that they truly deep down want to be the center of attention, but they feel like they've been branded with this stamp that says I'm shy.
Okay.
When they go into a stage show for hypnosis and they get chosen or their friend volunteers them, that deeper belief, that deeper desire to be the center of attention comes forward. And that's what really percolates up when they're up there dancing or speaking in a foreign language or doing something else. It's this inner desire that they have consciously stuffed down, allowed to come forward because, oh, I'll be hypnotized? Yeah, that's okay. I can write it off and I'll never remember what happened. Oh, that's even better.
That's so funny. For those who are with us live today, please go ahead and share with us in the comments what questions you might have for Daniel. We're talking about, of course, hypnotherapy, but we're also going to be moving into talking about creating your next story. And we have a brand new year and decade coming up here. So if you have questions, go ahead and let us know in the comments. And of course, we're going to continue to learn about Daniel's story as well as we go. So Daniel, with that said, I want to just kind of venture into that direction. You started to tell us your story and how you started to uncover your limiting beliefs so you could rewrite your story. What do you think is that really the first starting place, is to understand what beliefs you have that are running the show and then rewrite them? Or can you tell us what some next steps would be?
I think the starting point before we ever get down to beliefs, because the beliefs will percolate forward. For me, the first step is recognizing that there's something that's not making you happy. And the reason I say that is for the person who is just meandering through in life, saying this is just the way it is, it'll never get any better, and they don't have any higher aspiration, they would not be an ideal client because they've just given up.
Okay.
The person who feels like I'm stuck in all this mud and life is terrible, but I feel like there's something calling me forward out of it, and I'm still coated in all this mud, but I feel like there's some sunlight somewhere. That's when we start to really talk about what is it, what's the shift. And sometimes it's as simple as they know what it is, they just don't know how to climb out of the hole. Or in other cases, they are so much in the hole that all they know is the darkness of the hole. And we have to go through a process of, so tell me everything that's going on that you're not happy about or that you don't like. And then we play what I call the opposite game. So what would be the opposite of that one? What would be the opposite of that one? Because I've had clients that were so stuck that when I asked them, so what do you want out of life? How do you want life to be? I have no idea. I can't even think about that right now. So we had to define the place where they are and then start asking for the opposite of that unhappy. Okay, so what's the opposite of unhappy? Well, I guess happy. Okay. And then we slowly build it up from there as they, in that safe space, whether it's a coaching session or a hypnotherapy session, that they're actually allowed to talk about it. Is most people would just like, no, just rub some dirt on it, get back in the game. What are you complaining about? You have a better job than I do. You make more money than I do. Your relationship is so much happier. You guys look great on Instagram and Facebook. But those friends and family members don't see the day-to-day reality of it, of, yeah, I may be making a lot of money, but I am absolutely miserable in this job.
Yeah. Some people don't necessarily know what it is they truly desire or connect to most when they've been stuck in that old story, or, this is what I was told I have to do, so therefore I just keep doing it. I want to go back to your story, and let me just acknowledge that if anybody is typing in the comments, I notice I am not seeing anything on my end. Daniel, are you seeing anything on your end?
I am not. I see
Okay.
Joanne early on, but I don't see anybody since.
Okay, same here. So hopefully there aren't actually any comments that we have missed, and if there are, then we'll definitely respond to those when we complete the show. Daniel, I'd like to ask you, going back to what you shared earlier with the beginning of your story about when you uncovered, I like to problem solve. That's why, these certain things are happening in my life, why I'm falling into these patterns.
Uh-huh.
What was it like for you? You realized that, okay, I've got this belief and this needs to shift. Now, oh no, how do I shift something that's been ingrained in me my whole life, right?
That was tough. It was a hard thing because it was beyond just shifting. Now I had discovered this thing that once I realized that I'd been doing it, I realized I'd been doing it my entire life, that I always found myself in problem solving mode, yet giving myself the permission to dream about having my own business and doing my own thing rather than being an employee. That was a hard shift. And I remember there was a point when we were in Florida living in this development of new buildings that were, I think they started at $500,000 and went to $2 million. And I'm walking my dogs. And at that moment, I had taken a massive pay cut just to have the job that kept me afloat while I was going through school, and draining my 401k, like just in this moment of watching money go whoosh. And I'm standing there looking all around at, oh my God, why am I here? How did I find myself surrounded by multi-million-dollar homes when I am struggling financially? And it was hard. But at the same moment, there was an epiphany that came that was, you're the one who made it happen. You're here because you're supposed to be. So step back and stop looking at it as limitation. And I think that was my first awareness that everything has two sides, that I could look at it as very much the less than, which the only person who knows that is me. Right. Anybody else just meets me and, hey, he's just somebody else.
Right.
And he lives in this development too. He must have certain level of income. And that was really helpful in realigning where my focus would go. That one of the things I learned about in hypnotherapy school was the reticular activating system. That's a part of our brainstem that most people will experience when they buy a new car. That never seen it anywhere else until I bought it. And now there's 20 of them as I'm driving around it and every corner. And I made the leap from it's more than just an observational device. It also focuses on what I'm telling myself. So if I'm telling myself that life is constant struggle, all I will see is constant struggle. Yet there are good things going on too. And as I focus into the good things, even if they're the smallest things, I start seeing, instead of seeing obstacles, I start to see opportunity. The 5-Minute Journal is a classic book for this. It's 7 to 10 days, complete 180 in thinking. It's amazing.
So one of the things I know you already mentioned, and sounds like it's really good here, is in switching those beliefs or developing new beliefs is affirmations. Mm-hmm. So affirmations and journaling, are there any other tools you would recommend for someone to really start to ingrain a deep-seated new belief? And yeah, go ahead.
Meditation. Just take some time to breathe deeply, get out of the shallow fight-flight breathing, because that creates the churn in our mind, or it helps fuel it. When we take control of our breathing and slow it down, we're actually sending the signal back to our brain that you're imagining this threat. It really isn't there. And our thoughts will slow down, will get clear. That allows us to go into that meditative state. Maybe meditate on that affirmation mantra and really get connected into, I'm worthy and deserving. And if I could just pin probably the one issue that is the heart of all the work I do. It's people feeling unworthy or undeserving.
Have you found that there are some people who have one of those beliefs and didn't know they had that belief? I mean, I think actually I just answered my own question, I know, but
yeah, it percolated up later as the awareness of what the actual language was of it. They never really thought about it as worthiness and deserving until it just popped up.
So let's say there's someone who's 40, 50, older, younger, but you're at a certain place in your life and you're thinking, yeah, this sounds great. Gosh, I know I've got some limiting beliefs. I may not know what they are, but this sounds like too much work to actually shift them. So I'd rather just stick with what I've got, even though, gosh, it'd be nice to create a different reality. What would you say to that person to help them they've got that desire in there. They're just somehow thinking it's going to be too hard or too much work.
My blunt, sarcastic side would first want to say, so how's that working out for you? And then on the more empathic side of me, when it comes forward next, would say it's never too late.
Yeah.
You can change at any time. And particularly with hypnotherapy, it's not hard. That typically within 3 to 5 sessions, my clients have really embedded that new belief and they are carrying it forward, because we are going straight to the subconscious to rewire the belief system that's underneath everything they're doing consciously during the day. And through in the early session, when I'm making a recording for them that's made with the affirmations that we talk about, that are in their language, in their method of interacting with the world. So they're much stronger than just grabbing, say, a generic recording off of YouTube or somewhere else. I use the client's language, so the words mean something to them. And as I mentioned earlier, the way a belief gets impressed into the subconscious is either a moment of shock or repetition. They can be reprogrammed the same way. So by listening to that recording over and over and over, at least once, ideally twice a day, for about a month, it breaks down that old belief system and replaces it with the new one.
And I just want to highlight, you just said in a moment of shock. Beliefs get created in a moment of shock. So for anybody listening, please elaborate on this. I mean, that you're essentially saying anything that was painful or traumatic.
Yeah. And the illustration that was used when I was in training was an infant child reaching for a hot stove, and the parent says, "Bad," and slaps the hand. The child doesn't know the stove is hot and can harm them. The child is just being curious and exploring. Yet when the parent says bad, that's a value judgment. And what is impressed in that moment of shock is, I'm bad for exploring and for reaching out. Or that the child says something. Maybe the child learned a really interesting 4-letter word at school and doesn't know what it means. Comes home and says, "Hey, Mom," and Mom slaps them across the face. Now what I'm impressing is I'm not allowed to express myself. And I've had clients in that position where something that happened when they were infants, even pre-verbal, that the only method of expression they had in the moment was movement. And because of their movement, parent not paying attention, child almost falls, child gets scolded for almost falling, and impresses in that moment, I'm not allowed to express myself, which 20, 30 years later turns into, I can't say, I have no voice, not physically have no voice, but I don't own my voice to say what I need to say.
I feel like so many light bulbs are going off as people are listening to this, and I really wish I could check to see if there were any comments. So I want to look to do that. And I'm wondering if, while I look to do that, Daniel, will you share with us, can you share with us maybe a client story or two of someone who went from this and now they've had hypnotherapy or shifted their limiting beliefs and now they're experiencing a completely different reality while I look?
Yeah, there was one particular person that, growing up in another country, had impressed a belief that she was separated somehow, like separated from even spirit, but separated from other people. And as we went in and did the work, we discovered that as a child, actually, when we did the childhood regression with her, she went back into the womb. And there was a moment, I wasn't exactly sure where she was, because she says, it's dark. Okay, dark, and you're alone with others day and night. No, just dark. Okay. And I asked some other questions to try and frame, and like, no, it's just dark. I'm alone. Okay. Dark and cold or dark and warm? Dark and warm. Okay, so we're going to bring you forward to the next time, that the next event in your life when this belief, that is important around this belief. And she had come forward to about a year and a half, 2 years old, if I remember correctly. And she is in her aunt's arms being walked away from her mother, screaming. And the situation was that because of the country she was growing up in, that her mother didn't have the ability to take care of her, and made arrangements with her sister to raise the child. But all the 2-year-old knows is, I'm being taken away from my mother. When we facilitated everything around that and helped her with her now adult awareness, looking back on this situation, like, oh, I get it. She didn't have the ability to raise me the way she wanted to. And come at it from a loving perspective of, she was doing everything she could for me and the best she could, shifted the belief in those moments from, not only am I connected, but I am so connected and so lucky I have 2 families instead of 1.
Ooh.
When she came out of that session, she had the biggest smile I'd ever seen. And I'd known this person for 6 or 8 months.
Wow. Wow.
Big difference.
Yeah. One of the things I wanted to say earlier is, you were talking about the story about, a kid's going to put their hand on the stove, they might get slapped, and now they develop the belief. I forget what the example was that you.
Yeah, they're bad.
That they're bad. Okay,
they're
right.
bad because no would not be a value generally. Parent says no and then explains. That's different than you're bad for doing that.
Okay, and so what I want to acknowledge is, that could be one belief that gets ingrained, but there could be a myriad of other ways that a person could interpret something like that, right? So like one that came to mind for me is, maybe someone grows up and somehow thinks that they don't like cooking. Or is that, would you say? Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah, it can come out in any way.
So if you are with us live and there are things popping up for you, feel free to go ahead and put in the comments. I checked; it doesn't look like there's anything we've missed, so I'm grateful for that. Honestly, I feel like there's so much here. What do you think that people most don't understand about hypnotherapy that you'd like people to know?
I think the first is that they are in complete control. Because stage shows, and now there's even a show that I am not even going to give the name of it, that's doing more promotion of the misconceptions around hypnotherapy. But client is in complete control. It is not truth serum. When you are under hypnosis, you will not tell me your deepest, darkest secrets and all your passwords to all your stuff or your bank accounts. You can't be hypnotized to go and rob a bank or do anything against your moral code. It's a natural yet altered state of mind. So we're relaxing down to the state that is right above deep REM sleep. So a little bit deeper than daydreaming, but that place where you're kind of sort of at right when you're waking up in the morning or going to sleep at night, where you are actually super aware. You're more aware there than we are right now at beta brainwave.
Wow. I just drew a big blank. So essentially, you help people really release those limiting beliefs, replace them with new beliefs, and what becomes possible for people when they rewrite their story that way?
Honestly, whatever they want. And it's not like they're going to, I suppose someone could go from, working a 5-figure a year job to being a Richard Branson. There's layers to it of evolution, but they can go from really feeling like they are subjugated by other people and have no power in their life to now taking control and stepping out and saying, this is the way my life is going to be from here on out. And I am engineering my life forward, because not only am I allowed to do it, I'm taking control of it. I'm defining what my life will be, as opposed to other people telling me what I should do or shouldn't do.
You've already talked about different components of what someone can do if they're not going to, immediately just go to hypnotherapy. You've talked about journaling, and we've talked about meditation. Would you be open to just outlining a simple process that someone, like just the different, steps, like, first do this and then do that and then do that, for those who are here and really would like to start to write the story they want to experience in 2020?
Sure. First thing is sit down and just have some quiet space, whether it's half an hour, even if it's just 15 minutes. Give yourself some quiet space where you can really give yourself permission to think about what your goals and desires are. What are the things that you really enjoy doing? And think, I challenge you to think beyond, if I just make more money, everything will be fine. Because that is not it. And I can speak from experience that when you make that extra 25 grand a year, it doesn't make a difference, because you haven't changed your relationship to money yet. You'll find a way to spend 30 when you're making an extra 25. So give yourself permission to think beyond the initial limitation. If you are in a job that you're not feeling fulfilled doing, ask yourself consistently, why am I going here? There is something that's keeping you there that you are finding enjoyment in, and that will be the key nugget to carry forward. For me, it was problem solving. And I had complete control of everything I was doing in that space. I just wasn't happy with the majority of it. As you define forward, what is it that you enjoy doing? What makes your heart sing? And start connecting it into, how can I engineer my life toward that place? At first, it may seem a quantum leap away, but one little thing that, I think it was Zeno, journey of 1,000 steps begins with one step. Journey of 1,000 miles begins with one step.
Lao Tzu, I think.
Lao Tzu. Yeah. Oh, Zeno was the fallacy of movement. That's right. He was the other guy that Socrates argued with. But start taking those small baby steps forward and get empowered and trust. And as you take them, take a look around and see how the terrain is changing. See how you are feeling different, because rather than just, oh, I'm going to go get beat up today. No, you are allowed to happen to life. It's not about what people tell you to do. It's what do you want to do, whether they want you to do that other thing or not. You can make the active choice as to whether you want to do that thing or not. Maybe some days you do, maybe other days you don't. You don't have to. You do what's right for you. And for me, I call myself a personal empowerment coach. That is one of the hardest things for clients, what I've noticed, to really own that they don't have to live somebody else's story of their life. They truly can start writing and engineering it. But the first thing is to give themselves permission to think beyond that old story that they've lived up to this point. Like that's the baseline of gratitude. I'm where I'm at. Thank you so much. Where do you want to go from here?
I find that some people are they're afraid to first think of the fact that they do have a sense of personal power, and that actually can keep them in a space of living out someone else's life story versus really connecting and taking ownership of their own. And it doesn't have to be a blame or shame thing, but it's just, I think it goes back to that awareness piece. And then, like you said, connecting back to, what do I really want though? What, this is my life. What do I want? Go ahead.
If I take charge, that means I'm responsible.
Right.
Ooh, that's spooky.
It is. It's heavy. It's heavy.
I can't blame somebody. Come on.
Was there, aside from just realizing what your own limiting beliefs were and then going, oh gosh, some of these are a little more challenging than others, did you have any sort of very noticeable point of resistance, or maybe even questioned, do I really want to continue to move forward and create
Yeah. And I can speak into that. When I went through my training in Florida, I opened my business and 3 months later found out we were moving to Southern California. So I had put all my intention, all my focus into that business. I had branded for Southwest Florida and I had to give it up. So we move out here. And as we're moving, I'm thinking, I moved across the country once. This is not going to be a problem. Now I know what I'm doing. It's going to be great. But I didn't think about the intention. Like, I didn't come with intention. Like, I'll just start over. And I found myself in a space of pretty deep resentment for the first 6 or 9 months, because I still had a mortgage. I had moved. At this point, I'm rebuilding my business. I have no job, trying to find the stopgap in between. And I'm watching the 401k just sink like a thermometer in the freezer. And it was really stressful time. And I just had to do a gut check every day. Say, there's money in the bank. You're okay. Just keep going. And in a weird way, that challenge was the thing that made the difference, because I went ahead and I kept doing my work every week, putting out the new blog, which became the second book. And it was, while my heart may not have been in it every week, I knew I had to just keep doing the work, doing the things that would get me going, because I knew 3 people in this state when I moved here.
Wow.
My wife, her mother, and her brother. And I had to go find my tribe. It was hard. And there were really, really difficult moments where I was like, I just need to go find a job. I'm done. But as soon as I thought about that, like, no. And I had a few interviews. And the funniest thing about it, I remember this so clearly, I went for a job interview. And because I was now on my entrepreneurial path of living what I want to do on my schedule, and I stepped into this place that they so disregarded my time during this interview that, like, if you're disregarding my time now and I'm not an employee, what's it going to be when you feel like I'm obligated to you for a paycheck? And so all the challenge at that moment just became crystal clear that you really are on the right path. You will not be happy working for anybody else ever again. And you just have to keep moving forward. And at that moment, things started to break loose. It was like, that was my last little test to see if I really, really wanted to walk the walk that I was telling everybody else to walk. And like, yeah. And they still come up. I had one, I think you and I connected back in October when I had made a post about a vacation trip in Sicily. I'm wake at 2 a.m. thinking about the old me and the old stories and who was I before. And things still come up every now and then. And I broke one of my biggest money myths on that trip, that I had this belief that if I'm not working, I can't make money because I am my business. I can't be on vacation to make money. And I had a client pay me for 18 hours, so about $1,500 worth of work while I was on vacation. I'm like, it's busted. This is great. Like, I can make money on vacation. So like, that just went away in that moment. And the challenges come up, and it comes out to how you face them. Do you give up, or what's this trying to tell me? What am I supposed to learn from this?
Well, okay, so we're getting towards the end of our show today, but I'm not ready to end just yet. I absolutely have to touch on how law of attraction plays into this. And of course, this can be such a bigger conversation than what we have left here. But for anybody who's going, okay, so they're saying affirmations, meditation, my beliefs, I could do hypnotherapy. This all sounds so simple. I've heard of this before. And then we're going to throw in some law of attraction and I do all this stuff, and then life throws me a curveball and I have to move when I didn't expect it, and blah, 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 blah. And that I could see how that's just one example of how someone could say, see, it's not working. It doesn't matter if I change my beliefs. It doesn't matter if I say my affirmations. And what I want to highlight, and of course have you speak to, is that you do have the power to shift things. And even in those moments, things are still showing up for you. So it's about that momentum that you create. And so I'll just leave it at that. What would you like to say on this aspect?
So the first thing is, particularly with law of attraction, you will get what you put out. So if you have this idea that it's not going to work, it's not going to work. If you are vibrating from a space of fear, like I'm really not sure, or anger, that's what you're going to bring back. And the bigger thing is, in that moment, releasing attachment to outcome. Because had I been so stuck, I have to have this business in Florida, and not opening to, maybe the whole thing is that the universe is aligning for something bigger than I can imagine. Because the universe is infinite, and I'm, on a soul level, yes, but physically, no. The idea of opening to possibilities, that things may take place that I have no idea how they fit together, but those puzzle pieces will fall together and start to make sense if I just allow it. M. Night Shyamalan, the director, he did a commencement speech at Drexel last year that talks about that particular concept, and it's amazing how he brings it home. Like, I just have to trust that the puzzle pieces fit together, and he goes out and winds up getting back into mainstream film again. And what do I expect? The law of giving and receiving pulls into it. As someone maybe is walking down the street and they have $5 left in their wallet, but they have some money in the bank, and they see someone who's homeless, they can either give with the energetic of, this is my last $5 in my wallet, I don't know that I'll ever get it back. Or they can say, I have this I have maybe $100 in the bank account. I can give this over as a gift. Very different ways. And the universe looks at that as a different energetic, and you will be rewarded when you give out of security rather than giving out of insecurity.
I love that. And I think it's those moments that can be so pivotal or defining in opening up the degree of what else is going to shift next for us. I'll just use an example. There was one time that I worked somewhere, and there was someone in my workspace who was very challenging to deal with. And I know a lot of people can relate to that. And I was at that time really learning about law of attraction and practicing it, and tuning into how are things feeling in my body? And so when I would have these moments with this person, and I'd go, I would start to tense up and get frustrated and get into that space. And then I would have the awareness and go, we're shifting this. I'm going to allow this person to be who they are, because ultimately I can choose to let them impact me this way, or I can choose to, allow them to be who they are, because I want to. I'm kind of touching on something completely different, but it's all related and intertwined.
It is. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, in this space, I'm responsible for me. And so as I was practicing that, it got better and better over time. And over time, as I became less impacted by this other person, they did whatever they were going to do. And I chose to respond to it differently by shifting what was going on with me internally. New opportunities started showing up in my life, and things that I never would have anticipated manifesting for me. One of them was a new job that I was really, really excited about. Never would have seen that coming. I know that was as a direct result of me shifting how I responded to an external experience, which sometimes is another person. So just wanted to highlight that. So anybody here who's thinking, gosh, I would love to experience this, and this in 2020, and you get started on that path, and, let's say January 15th, a curveball comes your way. Don't let that stop you. That can be a learning moment to say, whoa, what is this showing me, or what's going on within me, and how am I allowing other people to impact me, and all of these other things. Excellent time to journal at that moment too.
Very much so.
Yeah. So as we wind down here, are there any final thoughts you want to share with our audience in terms of creating their 2020 or releasing limiting beliefs and any along those lines?
The first thing I want to touch back on what you just said there, that those obstacles that come up when it seems like life is throwing us a curveball, what life is doing there is testing us and giving us the opportunity to evolve into the person who is the successful version of ourselves. Because if we weren't that person, we're not that person already, because we haven't shed some of the things or gained that belief to be there. So like the successful future future person meditation of, if I was going to talk to the successful future version of myself, what would they tell me to do right now? It's the same thing. I'm going down this path and now there's a challenge. Well, your successful future version would say, move past it, just keep going. When you are looking at maybe writing your affirmations, your resolutions for the new year, don't write them in the negative. Don't talk about what you don't want.
Yes.
If your thing is money, the resolution is not, I don't want to be in debt next year. Your resolution is, when whatever your words are, the equivalent of I will be financially free and abundant. Don't say I want to, say you will be, because you can want all day long, all year long, and it never happens. I will be. I choose to be. I choose to be mindful with my finances. I choose to be mindful with my resources. I will find the perfect relationship in 2020, whatever your things are, and make them time bound. Don't just make it 2020. It's a date in 2020, June 30th, June 15th, because your subconscious mind is very literal. And if you just say in 2020, that gives you up to 11:59 on December 31st, 2020 for it to fall together. If you want it in a certain frame of time, you have to make it time bound. And in that, the last thing I can really say in this space is there are no incorrect goals, only incorrect time frames. It's a wonderful phrase from the gentleman who runs the hypnotherapy school, that as you're on that path, you don't know all the obstacles and challenges that are going to come along, or how long it's going to take you to overcome them in some cases, depending on how much you apply yourself into the space. So maybe your goal is to have a certain sum of money saved up by the end of next year. And let's just say it's we'll go big, $1 million next year.
Woo!
And on December 31st, 2020, you have $750,000 in the bank. Are you a failure? Absolutely not. So what's it take to close that gap? Not much at that point. You just didn't know.
I
Give
love
yourself
that.
the grace.
Yeah, absolutely. It's the way I see it is that everything is on a continuum. And so nothing has to be an ultimate stopping point.
Mm-hmm.
Even just going back to when you said, don't frame what you want in the sentence structure of I don't want this. And even that can be helpful, because that helps you to understand what it is you do want. So if you find that you keep saying, I don't want this, I don't want this, I don't want this, awesome. That's good information for you to help you gain that clarity. Now it would be the opposite of that and start to, evolve things from there. And lastly, before we go, I know this is a big question, but I just got to ask it because I can see someone asking this really quick. So let's say someone says, I have this goal and I want to accomplish it by January 31st. And let's say they're not even near it. It doesn't happen. I think that's where the attachment detachment piece comes in. Will you speak to that? Because I know that trips a lot of people up.
So the person who's really attached to a goal and am I understanding they haven't taken the action toward it, or the action hasn't gone the direction they thought it would?
You know what? That's a great distinction. I love that you said that, because before we end, I do want to acknowledge that everything we're saying comes with physical action. Okay. So on that.
It's called the law of attraction. There's action as part of it.
Yes. So on that note, so let's say, yes, they've been doing their affirmations. They've been doing action. They've, been doing what they can to shift any hidden limiting beliefs, and they're nowhere near accomplishing that thing by that date.
I would sit down with that person and say, let's understand the action you're taking, and are you taking intentional, mindful actions toward the goal? Is, let's say if we're in LA and we want to drive to Chicago, are you driving east or are you driving south? Let's figure out where your actions are taking you, and how much action are you putting in? Because if you, let's say metaphorically that they have 6 hours a day to put into action, are they taking 15 minutes of action, or are they taking 6 hours of action toward that goal? And where are they spending the rest of the time? So I always go back to there are no failures, only learning opportunities. So when we break it down, if you're not going in the direction that you say you want to go, why? And what do we have to do differently to get you going in that direction?
Awesome. So essentially it's a course correction, review and reflect, reassess, and all of that. Awesome. And you don't have to do it alone. And that's why it's awesome that there are people like Daniel, voted, what was it? The best hypnotherapist and favorite life coach? Something?
Yeah. 2 years ago, I was the favorite in the write-in category. Because I put my campaign together, they added hypnotherapist this year, and I won the hypnotherapy category.
That's awesome. In the write-in category too. That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
That's how you can change your life. You put yourself out there. Anybody listening to this, put yourself out there. You do not know how you can change things.
I love that. That's a go big kind of thing. Fantastic. Well, congratulations on that. And hopefully we'll see it for a third year or maybe some new awards or designations. Who knows?
Thank you so much, Kim.
Absolutely. You're welcome. Lastly, where can people go to find out more about you and connect with you after today's show?
They can find me online at danielolexa.com, Olexa.
Awesome. Wonderful. And thank you to everyone who has been here today. I hope that you found some takeaways from this. Please let us know in the comments. We will be checking those. And just know that this is what Every Day is a New Day is about. Every day, second, minute, hour, you may have heard me say this before, but literally any moment you are awake, you are thinking, you are breathing is an opportunity for you to make a different decision. Choose something different than what you've chosen before, even and especially if what you've been choosing, what you've been living was not maybe a conscious choice. We all grow up with other people in our lives that have influenced our beliefs and things that we do and how we behave and all of that. But what's awesome is that awareness piece. Once we are aware, oh my gosh, I could actually take my power back and choose to make a different choice now, decide to make a different choice. Anything is possible. And so I wish that for you in 2020 and the new decade, the new year. And I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful remaining 2019. Every day is always a new day. Wherever you are today does not have to be where you are tomorrow. Have a fantastic day, everybody. I'll see you in 2020. Bye for now.
And that's today's show. So, what are you taking away? Let me know down in the comments wherever you listened or watched today's episode, and connect with me on Facebook on the Every Day is a New Day show and coaching page, or visit KimO'NeillCoaching.com for more info. Remember, every day is always a new day. Wherever you are today does not have to be where you are tomorrow. There is always hope, and you will always be amazing. I'll see you next time.